Welcome to the Restoration Road, where my special guest today is my very good friend, the one and only Michael E. Kelly, pastor, Bishop Byrd.
Wow, that was long.
I know, yeah, long title.
Long title.
Black Hawk Ministries. Does everybody know that you were at a high school where you played with all Division I athletes in every sport you were in, that you could have been an Olympic swimmer, you ran the West Coast offense in football, you could have played football in college, you were on every starting member of the basketball team, went Division I, including you.
My kids didn't know, really, that I swam. And so I got to tell them all these stories, because I really did. I swam like every day of my life, from the time I was 6 to the time I was 12.
And were you California state champion in there?
State champion. Yeah.
I told you, you're a genius.
I was a state AAU champion 2 years in a row when I was 11 and 12. And it was all I did with my life.
And thinking about the Olympics.
I was thinking about the Olympics. I was thinking about how to go to the next level. And then I went to the gym one day and shot a basketball. And thought, oh, maybe I should do this.
See, you could have done anything.
I don't know. Practice was after school for hoops. Swimming was be there at 6 a.m. So I got tired.
Decision,
I got tired of getting up early.
Well, you got an amazing story. I guess like all of us, we have a father wound of some kind. Authors write about that. And your dad was a pastor, and the marriage didn't work out with your mom, and you were mad at the world. And John MacArthur came and grabbed you.
He did.
And tell about what happened.
Dr. MacArthur and my dad were great, great friends. And when my dad went south, when all that blew up, he really was a tremendous friend, encouragement, mentor to a young kid at that time who had, in the wake of all that happened with my mom and dad and the church, I had just kind of said, forget it. I was as far away from God and anything that was right and true that you could get, doing everything that you do when you're as far away from God and right and true as you can get. So anyway, yeah, one night I had been down to LA. My folks had moved to LA from the Bay Area in an last-ditch effort to try and patch things up. John was down there, with his wife, Patricia. Grace Community Church is down there. I had been down there and was visiting, and we got reconnected, and he knew I was in trouble. He knew I wasn't right. And just the shepherd's heart, I think our friendship over the years, he calls me, John calls me one Friday night at the frat house. And it was late, and I had already been...
He's calling you in Fresno?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he called me in Fresno.
Okay.
And I had been home for, about a week, back at Fresno, late one night, frat house. I had already been fraternizing, whatever we do in the frat house. And I was a little, I wasn't quite straight. And it's Johnny Mac on the phone, just going to bed that night, had me on his heart and said, God just prompted me to give you a call, tell you we're praying for you, we believe in you, we think God's got something special for you, and hope we get to see you down here again sometime soon.
My goodness.
And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, I get a scholarship offer to play basketball at the Masters College.
You had won a NIT championship.
We were at Fresno State. I was starting to kind of live out my dream, and yet my life was morally, personally, ethically, every way you can say it, it was bankrupt. And God just began to pull on my heart. And one of the things God used was John, the Masters College, and this chance to go play basketball at a school of 250 kids. Where lights were out at 11. And they didn't like you going to see movies.
That would kill you.
I know, it was hard, but it was...
hard. You didn't obey that rule.
Yeah. No, I didn't at first. I didn't at first. But yeah, that's how that happened. John was just an incredible influence and a gracious discipler over those times.
You hear the Romans 7 passage, "O wretched man," and you surrender your life to Christ, and the pew, hitting your head on the pew, and you say, God, I'll do anything you want me to do except be a pastor.
I said I'd go to Africa. Because everybody says, I'll do anything except go to Africa. I said, I'll go to Africa. I'll go anywhere in the world. Whatever you want me to do, but I won't be a pastor.
And what finally got you there?
I got tricked.
How'd you get tricked?
I got tricked by Russell Moore, who was the pastor at Black Hawk before I came, and one of my best friends for the last 25 years. Russell was the junior high pastor at Grace Community with John when I got saved. And it just so happened, literally, it just happened that I met Russell. And he started to disciple me and read the Bible with me and answer my questions and build into me. And I was so thankful. And one day he said, no, I had said to God, I will not do ministry. Russ Moore pulls me aside after 4 or 5 times together and says, hey, I need some help with some junior high boys. That's how he said it. He just said he needed help with junior high boys.
You'll teach them how to post up.
I don't know. I said, what do you need? He goes, well, they just need somebody to lead a little Bible study for them and take them out and do something with them. And so I said, sure. Well, he wanted a small group leader as a volunteer staff person in his ministry of, I think they had like 300 junior high kids.
Oh my.
And he had a volunteer staff of 75, and he wanted me to join his staff and do ministry, but I didn't know it was ministry. So I did it. Danny Stepper, Rodney Anderson, Kevin Johnson, in Rodney Anderson's bedroom in beanbags and Daniel chapter 3. And I had thought about it and read it and read it and thought about it and as nervous as could be driving over to that 7th grade boys' house that night. And I read to them Daniel 3, and we studied and talked about and kind of fleshed out Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they had all these questions, and they understood what I was saying, and we got to talk about the application of that in their life, and they thanked me, and we prayed, and I just wept in my car going home, and it hit me. He tricked me. It was like he tricked me. He knew, and God knew, and Russ knew, and I knew that night going home from that small group with 5 7th grade boys in Southern California that I had done that night what I should do.
Before we get how you came to Black Hawk and you're a pastor, I want you to tell the story about you and Russ and cleanup day at that church when the elders walked out.
At Foothill.
Yeah.
Yeah, Foothill Baptist. Russ, the same guy, he and I co-pastor this church together. He was starting to feel like maybe it was time to leave Southern California, maybe leave Grace Community and the college where he also worked with John. So they gave him a chance to kind of break away, and he kind of part-time senior pastored this little church, and I came with him, and a whole bunch of us came, and we had a great time, and we were just starting out. Russ decides we should have a work day. So all the deacons of the church, it's a pretty traditional church, but they were willing to give us a try, and it was a decent start, and this work day comes, and it's a Saturday, and Russ and I decide we should get there first to just set a good tone and be there early. So we get there first, we open up the church, and the first thing he notices is this god-awful table that's sitting down in front of the pulpit that's crooked, and the legs aren't straight, and the stain's chipped, and anyway, he says, let's get rid of this thing.
You want to be about excellence.
That's right. We wanted things to look sharp. So this ugly table, he and I pick it up. It had a little bit of weight to it, remember? And we walk it out the middle aisle, out the doors of the church, across the parking lot, and we toss it together up into the dumpster, which is sort of full, and the table won't go all the way in. So he's like, Birdman, take care of that table, man. Come on, finish that job. So I climb up on the edge of the dumpster with this table sitting halfway in. And as I'm jumping off the edge of the dumpster to kick and break that table all the way in, this pickup truck comes pulling into the parking lot. And it's this big cab pickup truck. There's 4 guys squeezed into the front seat of this thing, and it's the deacons. They had come to kind of be a little early, and as they drive up, we notice that every one of them, their faces are just ashen. They're just aghast, and they're looking at me up there on this thing, and I'm just kicking this table all the way down in as they pull up. And long story short, one of the deacons' grandfathers, 89, 90 years before, had handmade that table for that church. And that table had sat in that spot from the day this guy's grandpa, 90 years ago, made it with his own hands. And I had just finished it off with one big kick.
And so you were working construction the next day?
Well, it's so funny because that's another whole story. That whole thing at Foothill went really well, and then it just went sideways, and Russ came to Indiana, and I kind of stayed there, and then when Russ left and I was there, those guys turned on me. It got really ugly. That's like 3 or 4 other stories I can tell you.
That's the key.
Got
to the
really ugly.
office.
But one day somebody said to me, "Man, those guys were brutal to you. Did you ever do anything? Did they have something against you?" And all I could ever think about was that day when I'm kicking that table in and breaking that poor guy's heart. So anyway.
So Kelly, you've never been one for much tradition in a church.
No.
And you come to Blackhawk, and then Russell kind of tricks you again. He brings you in to be a small groups guy, leader, and then he leaves.
Yep.
And
come advance the kingdom in the Midwest with me.
It's cold.
Buddy. Yeah. Yeah, about 3 years later, he's back playing golf 12 months a year.
Yeah. And
we're here.
You become the senior pastor, and you and I bump into each other at a Willow Leadership Conference about a year later. And you bring me on and cast this vision where I could volunteer and use my gifts and be a teaching pastor and kind of co-lead with you. And man, hundreds of people surrender their lives to Christ. We baptized 200 at a time. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh man, and you're still at it. You're obviously still at it.
Baptized 30 at the pool last Sunday night.
Terrific.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And had some stories shared?
Great night. Yeah, I had some amazing stories.
Isn't it amazing when the church is relevant? I mean intentionally relevant to the community outside the 4 walls. How people are warm to responding to God. I mean, they get surrender, they're just surrendering to the wrong things.
Right.
And I think those stories of baptism were some of the most powerful things that we've ever encountered.
No doubt.
And they are still every
and
day.
When you say relevant to the community, I don't think I told you this, but we just thought about it one day and we decided to do it. For baptism last Sunday night at the pool, we decided to meet at the worship center and do about 45 minutes of just like through the roof worship. It was so sweet. It was so good. The guys did an amazing job. And we had a huge turnout, so we're packed in there, and we had decided about a month before that we were going to walk to the pool as a church through our neighborhood. Oh. Isn't that cool?
That is a great idea.
I know.
Visible.
It was visible. Yeah. And we weren't like carrying banners and no bullhorns. It wasn't like some demonstration. We just walked as, 300 people from the worship center down the street. Cars are stopping, people are asking questions. And it was just a great way to say, hey, we're going to the pool to do a baptism. You're welcome to come if you'd like. It was kind of sweet.
It is cool.
Yeah. And then we walked back after we baptized the 30 people and had communion.
Beautiful. Well, ever since I've known you, you've been about leadership in the local church. Yeah. And you've spent a lot of time with Bill Hybels talking about these topics. And so I just want to pick your brain a little bit about where the church is, you think, and what leadership styles and strategies that you're seeing that's working.
My mind just goes to probably some of the stuff I'm thinking about that we're dealing with. I know churches all over are dealing with different things. Here's what I'm wrestling with, and I'm 49 years old.
Very handsome, full head of hair, 49 years old.
I'm almost 50. And I've always felt this inside me, probably the last 10 years. And I think now it's just getting clearer and coming to fruition. And that is that I just unashamedly, without hesitation, I've got this thing in me that I want so desperately for the church to be relevant in the next 15, 20, 25 years. I want the church and its doctrine, which I don't think should ever change. Right. I want the church and the way in which it does ministry and the way in which ministry looks. I'm realizing I want it to change drastically, minimally, maximally. I want it to stretch and bend. I want a new paint job. I want it completely, whatever needs to happen in order to connect this truth and this doctrine and this gospel that never changes to a culture that is always changing. I want to do whatever we've got to do, and I don't feel the slightest bit guilty about that. Finally, there's a freedom in me, and I brought up 50 years old because I'm realizing, it's kind of weird, I'm not going to be doing this, forever. And I'm looking behind me at 20-year-olds who are 30 years, think about that. There's guys 30 years younger than you.
Blows my mind.
And me. Here's guys and gals who are...
I feel like I'm their age.
Well, I know.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, hey, and then I'm thinking, I could be your dad.
I know. And you get him in a pool, I can still beat him.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the deal. How about a 50 fly? Here's the deal. They're really, really talented. And they're really gifted. And they're really bright. And they're really creative. And they love God. And they love God. And they love the church. And they want it to be relevant. And so there's just this huge part of me now that's just opening up more and more and more so to them and to what God has for us in the days to come. I was at a Chick-fil-A leadership conference. I don't know if you attended.
You went to that?
Yeah, Chick-fil-A live simulcast.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just like Willow does.
Yeah.
And I was a part of that for a day. And at that conference, I heard the story of Burberry. Have you heard it?
I don't think so.
You haven't heard the story of Burberry. Do you know what Burberry is? It's that brand. It's that store. It's that retail deal that's been around. Burberry, they did overcoats.
Yeah, I got a couple coats
and
I like.
Plaid scarves for 150 years. They did gray. They're in Britain. They're in the UK. They did gray, brown, black overcoats.
Yeah.
For a long time. Very established and entrenched. Well, the CEO about 10 years ago realized that something had to change if Burberry and its name and its tradition and all that it stood for was going to make it into the next, 20, 50, 100 years. Something had to happen. And so it was just really cool. You could watch it sometime online. She talked about the establishing of 2 teams within that organization, and she just pulled it off. She established a dream team. She established a team of 20 people who loved Burberry and who were all about Burberry and who were 20, 25 years old. They were innovative, they were creative, they were technologically savvy, they understood our culture, this world, they got the internet. And she said to them and the guys that she appointed to lead them, go away 4 times a year and rebrand, rethink, replan, re-envision Burberry. And then she pulled together another team. And these were the Old Faithfuls. She pulled together 50, 60-year-old men and women who had been in Burberry forever, whose parents had been in Burberry. And she said, listen, it's over. This is never going to be the same again. And you can fight it, and I'll let you go. Or you can help me here. I need you to form a team of wise, prudent, discerning minds who take every single idea that this dream team comes up with, and you add to it your insights and your wisdom and your cautions, and you allow us to use that to make what they come up with even better, and we're going with it. And they have completely transformed. Look up Burberry.
Color, handbags, it's totally different.
It's orange, it's green. They do store openings via stream. I don't even say it right. They do, it's incredible. What Burberry has become today is high level, high tech, cutting edge. Any kid, any 20-year-old in the world is about Burberry. And 15 years ago, never would have happened.
Oh, no.
So I know Burberry's not the church, but my point is Burberry is the church. There is a core element there that can't ever change. And if we're going to get it to the next generation, we've got to be willing to empower and envision and help train and encourage these young men and women to use their gifts and enjoy the ride.
Christ is our restorer, and restoration means to be made new again. And why wouldn't we think that Christ wouldn't restore our ways to reach the lost?
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't change the Bible. That's eternal truth.
Yeah.
We're the ones that need to change in order to connect. It's been always about connecting with another person and relationships.
Yeah.
And so why would we find it odd that he's not going to give us new ways to reach people relationally?
Yeah.
And Proverbs 18:13 says, anyone who answers before listening is to his folly and shame. Burberry listened. You as the church leader, you're listening. And you're listening to Christ, and you're listening to your culture so that you can connect culture with Christ.
Trying to.
And I think you're doing a great job. It doesn't always mean that somebody who surrenders their life to Christ after addiction all of a sudden is going to start tithing a whole bunch of money, and sometimes it can mean your budgets drop a little bit, I think. But you still...
Well, and sometimes it means, and this is just the reality, and we've had to wrestle with this, sometimes it means that an older person says to you, it seems, Kelly, like you're making this about them, the younger person. To which I have to say, you know what? I am. I'm asking you, in all your years, to help us make this about them so that this bigger thing that we care about can go forward long after you're gone and I'm gone. So I really am asking for there to be a shift in priority and focus and energy. And there's just some who really are okay with that, and there's just others who struggle with it.
Some get really energized.
Yeah.
I mean, there's very little that'll energize you more than investing in the life of a young person.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's incredible. You've been through a lot. You got Russell's playing for Michigan State and Coach Izzo, and he's worked through how many surgeries, how many times?
3 surgeries, three breaks in the 5th metatarsal.
On the foot, and where is he now? I mean, he went to the best in the world. He's all ready to go.
You know, he's good. He's healthy. Just had his first summer without a boot in 3 years. Is playing again, is playing well again. Tom's very encouraged, very excited. The staff's really thankful for where he's come. His game's good, his head's good, his heart's in a good place. So we'll see. It looks like we've learned over these years. You know, you just say, we'll see. And you hope it works out well. I know the things I've watched him learn. I know as cliche as it may sound, when you're in it, it's way beyond cliche. The character that's been built, the lessons that have been learned, the perspective that I think God's given him over these 2 years of struggle. I don't think he would trade it for anything. So we're thankful.
Kelly, if someone's watching today and the idea of surrendering their life to Christ has never really crossed their mind until now, what would you say to them?
I would say, you know, without a doubt that the longer I'm at this, you know, the longer I'm in the process of helping people see and understand what it means and what it looks like to follow Christ, the more confident and the more sure I am that it is a life of meaning, a life of freedom, a life of hope, a life of joy. I look at what some people, myself included, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I look at what some people are following. You're following somebody or something, and I look at the end result of what so many people are following. I just can't tell you. My heart breaks. I want for you peace and joy and forgiveness and meaning. And I would so encourage you to think honestly about what it is you're following and the end result that it continues to bring. My guess is you're lacking. My guess is you really sense the need and the opportunity to find real and lasting joy and peace, and that's available only in the Son of God.
Amen. Kelly, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, man.
Love you.
Yep.
About a decade into post-World War II Europe, famed car designer and racer Briggs Cunningham had a hunch. He arrived at a gate and went down a road and arrived at a destination where he thought the 2 missing Bugatti Royales existed. Now, Ettore Bugatti was criticized for building small automobiles, so he said, you know what, I'll build the biggest, most powerful, beautifully designed vehicles in the world. And he did, and they were called the Bugatti Royales. 1 was destroyed in a fire, and 2 were missing, and they were Ettore Bugatti's personal vehicles. Well, Briggs came up to a brick wall, kind of a facade in a garage, and it just appeared out of place. He grabbed a nearby sledgehammer and he pounded that wall and shone a light in there, and behind that brick wall were the 2 missing Bugatti Royales, Briggs Cunningham had found what was lost. And for $50,000 and 2 refrigerators, which sold at a premium in post-World War II Europe, Briggs Cunningham bought the 2 famous Bugatti Royales and brought them back to the United States, where he knew he had to do one thing: restore them to authenticity. You know, inside each one of us is a brick wall that needs to come down in order for us to be restored. It's mortared in there with stone and sand, 2 pictures of a proud heart. Stone is the heart of the older brother in Jesus' parable of the prodigal son. It's legalistic, hard, rigid, takes a severe tool to be shaped or restored. Whereas sand is loose and licentious, it's scattered, it blows in the wind, kind of like the prodigal in Jesus' parable of the prodigal son. But both remain restorers and God in their own lives, and both remain unrestored and dissatisfied. For that brick wall to come down in our lives, we need to have a heart of clay, a heart of love, a heart of humility, one that's malleable in the hands of the restorer. And that's what I invite you to consider today, to surrender your sand and stone to the one who makes things new, and allow him to shape your heart for the unique expression of Christ in you. You know, I had the privilege of being involved in auctioning both those Bugatti Royales decades later. One for $6.5 million, one for $11.5 million. And what I want you to know today is that the Bible says that you were purchased by Christ for a world record price. You have more value than any Bugatti Royale, than any Duesenberg on the planet. And God desires for you to humble your heart to him, and he will restore you, and he will make you new. So today I invite you to pray that prayer: God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I can't restore this life, God. Only in Christ you can, and he will make you new.
179, and now 180. I got 179, I got 180,000. The reserve's off. Buy it for her. Buy it for her. At 181 pounds, I give 182. And now 183. 183 Ed. 183. Now 184. Who wants to bid 187,000? At 186, I give 187. 5. And now 187. And now 188. Who wants to bid $193,000? $194,000. And now 200. Let's go to 300,000. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Who wants him to bid again? At 206,000. I get 206,000. I'm going to get 207. It's only money that'll bring you happiness today.